Okay, I wanted to go over the enhancements for version 2 of the Bose SoundTouch Hybrid 2026 app. Since I first posted and released the app on GitHub and posted about it on Reddit, I got a lot of great feedback. One of the most important feedbacks I got is even though I had bypassed the Bose Cloud with my Music Assistant streaming backend server, there was a registry handshake that I was missing. So that has now been incorporated into the SoundTouch Hybrid application, into the Bose Cloud emulation. So it's completely independent of the Bose Cloud. I've tested the whole thing by blocking all of the Bose websites. So that's a behind the scenes, very major change that was implemented. But I do want to go over some of the other changes that I made. The first one is here on the library manager. You remember from the other one, you can assign your presets or just play any music directly to a speaker up here. And we had a search capability, and that was programmed for my particular providers that I use for Music Assistant, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and Local NAS. Now, Music Assistant's search is completely agnostic. Whatever providers you provide or you define up in Music Assistant, you get to them the same way, and my app does the same thing. But I realized people might have other providers and they might not necessarily want to go in and change my code to just add a new provider. So I added the global provider, which replicates the Music Assistant's global search, which is fundamentally how their search works in the first place. I broke out these providers, Spotify, Radio, and Local NAS, just for my own benefit. I liked having that kind of segmented out. So that's sort of an artificial segmentation. But just to show you, so I have the search just like I showed in the other video. It goes to Spotify and brings up all of the music related to Mozart. I can go to my local radio and I can get Mozart-related radio stations. On my local NAS, I actually have ripped Mozart CDs, and so it goes and gets that, and these are local here. But now with global, it's going to return all of this back. So if you have, say, Apple Music or YouTube or any other providers defined in Music Assistant, they're not going to be artificially filtered out by my three sort of hard code segmentations of my search here. And you're not necessarily going to go in, and it's a simple change, but if you wanted to change my code in my README, it talks about that. It's very straightforward. But this way you'll always have the global, no matter what your providers are. And as you can see, what I did is I specified where they came from. So here you can see this playlist is from Spotify. Most of this is Spotify, but if I go through, so for your example, here's the local NAS, this Mozart piano work. So that's aggregating all of the providers that are accessible up in Music Assistant. And again, that's the native way Music Assistant search works. So it's basically a one-for-one. So I wanted to show you that. That's a change. Another function that I added was some back-end error checking in case Music Assistant, sometimes if it drops a WebSocket and somehow it loses its connection to the Bose SoundTouch speaker. And I started seeing this when I was constantly turning my speakers on and off and relaunching my apps a whole bunch of times during all my testing. Every now and then, I would go to play something and it would just be silent. And I'm going, what's going on? And I find out that even though Music Assistant thinks it sees my speaker and says it's playing on it, it's not really playing on it. So I wanted to put in something that could kind of auto-detect that. So that's what I've added. So for example, if I say play Mumford & Sons on the Bose Den, I know that's going to work. I've done a setup for this test just to show you. So you can see I'm playing Mumford & Sons on the Bose Den. I'll turn that off. for this demo, I broke the connection on Music Assistant. Even though I see Bose Studio here, and this list is dynamic, if the SoundTouch app can't see a speaker because it's offline, this will actually be a red grayed out kind of indicator. I know the Bose Studio is active, it's valid, but I went behind the scenes to replicate this strange event that happened to me a bunch of times just to show you. So now I'm going to play Mumford & Sons on the Bose Studio, and what's going to happen is we're not going to hear anything. And in fact, you can see over here on the log, right here, you see over in the log, it attempted to play something, but if I went up into Music Assistant right now, it would show that it's playing it on the speaker. It's a Music Assistant problem, not a SoundTouch library problem. So what I did is I found two cases where this could happen. One is if the container, like this happened up in Spotify, where I would have a playlist, but then the playlist was gone. And so it's like trying to play an empty shell up on Spotify. I would get this error. So that's what I call invalid media. And you can just dismiss the message and go on, play something else. Or you can get the scenario that I just talked about where it's this dropped DLNA socket. It's a Music Assistant problem. And you can go ahead and restart Music Assistant right here if you want. And that'll reinitialize all of Music Assistant. Again, this is a rare case kind of thing. It happens if you're running Music Assistant and for some reason you've been unplugging your speakers, this situation it's sort of like an orphaned connection to a speaker. So now I've rebooted Music Assistant. I should point out here too, that function was already in version 1 to restart Music Assistant, but I thought, oh, well, I'm at it, I might as well put in restart SoundTouch Hybrid too. So in case you have issues or something, instead of having to go into Docker and restart your container, you can just do it up here. So that was another behind the scenes enhancement that I made. So I just wanted you to know about that as well. Now, the other really big changes have to do with speaker admin and the system tools. As part of my redesign of the backend Bose Cloud emulation and how the hybrid presets work, I got rid of completely all of the flashing of the hybrid presets that you had to do manually. This all happens now automatically behind the scenes. So I've, of course, removed all of that from the speaker admin page, which you saw on the original video. I added a couple things, so you can, toggle, because that was a capability that's I don't use, but I thought some people might use because I use everything Wi-Fi. I also added a reboot capability that actually helped with all my testing and stuff, but I'm able to go in and remotely reboot a speaker. I got tired of plugging and unplugging while doing all my testing, and so this is actually a back-end telnet command that it's running. So that's changed a bit here. And then the other really big change is on the system tools. And the first thing I'm going to just show you, because we were talking about the library manager, I realized one of the guys who used my app uses it mainly for his local NAS, and they might not necessarily like having the search in this order. So I added the ability to go in and change where these search tabs are. So now I can put my global up here and my local NAS right here, and I can save it. And of course, this is all on the mobile app here. Everything that you see is here, but just to show you here, see now you can see how global is first, local NAS, Spotify, then radio. So I thought that might be a nice ease of use thing that people might want. So you can see now it's changed here. And now the other major thing, and this was the stuff that the developer community addressing the Bose server shutdown pointed this out to me, is it turns out you have to override a speaker's internal configuration to point it from the Bose cloud to your local cloud emulator. And what I had before was I completely bypassed all the Bose streaming, but there's this other kind of authentication registry update that you need from the Bose Cloud. If your speaker doesn't see that, it's going to fail after May 26th. If you read up on GitHub, you can see how you got to edit files and telnet in and things like that. So what I wanted to do is, because my goal is to not only have the same functionality as the SoundTouch app and the SoundTouch speakers, but to not have to rely on the native SoundTouch app at all going forward. So what I did is, one, I put in Wi-Fi provisioning, so this replicates what you do when you initially reset a factory speaker. You can, there's 3 ways you can go in. You can go in with the speaker hotspot or a USB cable. That's the way the native app works. So I replicated that functionality here. Plus, I also said, well, hey, if I got a speaker already connected and I want to change, say you're changing your network name, you can obviously do it and push your credentials, here, and just push that through, and that'll happen automatically. The one thing that I had to do is, if you're doing it via Wi-Fi cable, since this is a server app, it'll actually generate a script that allow you to update your speaker just like the native SoundTouch app, where you have to plug in a USB cable. It'll actually generate the script to do that all automatically. Again, I couldn't really do that on a browser-based app because it's really running on the server, and you need it to run on the machine that's plugged in to the speaker with the USB cable. So this is obviously one option, and it's just for Windows, but it could easily be done for a Mac. I think it's called a bash script. So if anyone wants to knock that out, that's cool. So anyway, so I added all of that, so that allowed me to be completely independent for Wi-Fi setup, including a factory reset speaker. That was my other big goal, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm planning to buy some more SoundTouch 30s after May when they're cheap on eBay. So here's the really big piece, the Bose Cloud Emulation setup. And as I said before, you have to go in and point your speakers to the new cloud, whether you're using a SoundCork implementation or the UberBose backend cloud emulator. I have my own backend cloud emulator, but it's exactly the same, and it's built automatically into the app, so it's really transparent to the end user. And in addition, I got tired of going in and manually editing files with telnet and things. So now what you do, you come here and it's going to automatically, based on all the configuration of this application in your initial setup, it's going to automatically build that file. And when you click on your speaker here, it's going to telnet in, it's going to put in the speaker, it's automatically going to submit the reboot, and your speaker will be pointing straight to the Bose SoundTouch Hybrid backend cloud. There's a whole backend where it has to look for certain sources and the setting of the hybrid presets that in the version 1 you had to do manually. That's all completely automated on the very first time you run your speaker, including a factory reset speaker. Once you do this, the server is going to detect all of that, and it's going to assign the right authentication, the sources, the presets, the registry update. If you do a factory reset, once you set up your Wi-Fi connectivity and inject this Bose Cloud emulation, it'll do all of the initial speaker setups. And that's all in my system technical documentation. There's also one other issue that I want to point out, and that is the Bose Studio wireless link. It turns out there's just no way into that to do the whole cloud emulation, because you need to do this temporary USB hijack. So I thought, well, at least for my application, because I really like my wireless link adapter, I realized I can just camouflage the fact that the wireless link adapter is still pointing to the Bose. If I look here, it's still pointing to the Bose, like here, streamingbose.com, because you can't change that. So what I did is, behind the scenes, I have a whole separate logic path that, even though the wireless link adapter does not have presets, in my first release, I still wanted it to have presets. So they're really virtual presets. And that turned out to be a great thing, because now I'm able to put a background branch of logic to emulate the presets and have its own path where I'm really, when you're pressing these buttons here, I'm really kind of talking to Music Assistant directly, and then having Music Assistant feed directly back to the speaker. But to the end user, it works and looks all the same as all the other ones. And of course, you still have hardware grouping and all the things I showed you before. So anyway, so that's the big changes. This is guaranteed to bypass the Bose Cloud. There's no leftovers. I really appreciate the feedback I got on a few things that I missed in terms of the back-end Bose Cloud emulation. I've also got feedback on my READMEs and my install instructions, so I've cleaned those up. So hopefully things are a little clearer to understand how to get things set up. But if not, you can create issues and discussions up on GitHub. So yeah, version 2, Bose SoundTouch Hybrid 2026.